Let's bring in the roundtable. Democratic strategist and former Clinton campaign spokesperson, Karen Finney. Chair of the American Conservative Union, Matt Schlapp. Congressman Ben Ray Lujan of New Mexico, the chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Greta Van Susteren, anchor of Voice of America's Plugged In. And ABC News' own political director, Rick Klein. So, Karen, let me start with you. The president says Donald Trump's on the ballot. This is the first re-election. I'm sorry.
No, he's not the president yet. Woo, that was a slip.
Because Steve Bannon says that Donald Trump is on the ballot. So what do you think?
He wants you to believe that, and that's what they're using.
Don't you want to believe that too?
No, because here's the thing. From the work that I've been doing, what people really care about is their own lives. They're not as concerned about Donald Trump right now. He is not as much of a motivating factor in the way that he is potentially for Republicans. And what Bannon is trying to do is keep their base stoked and fired up.
But the whole
we got to pretend
and all. Isn't this all about like fighting, pushing back on?
But here's part of the problem that they have. At the same time, we were talking about immigration. We were just talking about those images of children. If you're a Republican House member in a moderate district, you are on your own, because this president is not going to do anything to help you show your constituents that you actually care about those kids. And the other problem that these guys now have is that those images are heartbreaking. And they got, as much as Donald Trump wants to tell us he had the biggest crowd on his inaugural day that we've ever seen in the history of the world, we now can see with our own eyes that he's basically making the United States do something completely immoral.
And Matt, the president has said that he doesn't want those kids to be separated.
October 7th, he sent a letter to Congress to change this policy.
So, but Bannon fully embraced it.
Yeah, but this is Obama's.
Zero tolerance.
But Jonathan, this is also Obama's policy.
It's absolutely
that's
not true.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is true. This is. Jonathan, let's get the facts.
The Attorney General said that this was zero tolerance.
Let's get the facts on the table. George Bush signed a law in 2008 on unaccompanied minors. It's a Flores decision from the 1990s that says the kids can't go with the adults through the education process. I hate the policy. I want them to change the policy. But this is the rule of law. The president doesn't decide what laws he follows and what laws he doesn't follow.
Is it the parents were freed to come back for their hearing?
It takes 5 to 10 days to adjudicate whether or not somebody is here to be in a political asylee. If they're not a political asylee, they can go back with their children to their home. Otherwise, we have to go through this process. And if you want to change the law, that's fine. But you don't get to decide which laws. And Obama followed this law. All those photos you're seeing, it is true.
It can be done differently.
But you're
trying to tell me, though, that Donald Trump, the all-powerful Donald Trump, couldn't stop this from happening if he really wanted to?
When you're the president,
and more importantly,
Lindsey Graham says all it would take is a phone call.
That's exactly right.
The Congress changes the law. The president executes the law. I get it that Obama did whatever he wanted, but that's the way separation of powers works. When you criticize Trump on this, you're also criticizing Obama.
So Congressman Lujan, you're actually going to the border after the show to take a look at all of this. What was your reaction to what you heard from Steve Bannon?
Well, once we finish up today, we'll be headed down to visit with our colleagues. Phil Vela put together a trip in South Texas. Michelle Lujan Grisham is leading an effort down in Southern California as well. I think this policy is disgusting, and there's no reason that children should be treated this way. Tearing apart children from their mothers and from their families, where you're hearing them cry and scream, this is just not American. And one of the concerns that we also have is how House Republicans have seemed to walk away from a piece of legislation that would allow us to address this and to fix it. And the very member, Carlos Curbelo, who helped lead the effort on the discharge petition, is the gentleman that went to go visit with Speaker Ryan and turned his back on all the vulnerable Republicans that were coming forward. One, this is horrific, this is ugly, but I think this is going to be devastating for House Republicans that made promises to their constituents.
Okay, it's terrible to take the children from the kids, from their parents. It's just absolutely. But let's not. I mean, I think Republicans and Democrats both have a lot of gall blaming each other. I mean, it's really disgusting. I mean, look, they all want to be voted to come to Washington and solve this problem. And they all say they're going to solve the problem, but they come here and fight. And let's look, President Trump, he has the House, he has the Senate, but not a filibuster-proof Senate. But President Obama, he had the House and the Senate, not a filibuster-proof Senate. Back in July 2010, I went to American University when he gave his grave immigration speech. So look, let's not have all the tears from the two parties about how how horrible the other party is. They all say they can fix it. Well, they ought to fix it, and they ought to do it. It's disgusting that all they do is point fingers at each other and blame each other.
And John, as for the circumstance now, there is no realistic chance of Congress passing a fix to this, a change to this. It's part of the immigration legislation that will be on the House floor next week, including the Paul Ryan plan. But, you know, the president on Friday initially said he was against that plan. Later in the day, tried to clean it up. I've talked to some people around House leadership. They think that the damage was already done, that this was already tenuous. And
so the so-called moderate bill,
the moderate bill that he said,
pretty hard line.
That's right. Even though the president says that now, it's because of people like Steve Bannon on TV. There are a lot of Republicans are afraid the president will change his mind again and say, wait a second, this is amnesty or this is not something I can support. And it strikes me that this is the fight that President Trump's been looking for a very long time, virtually since the moment he declared his candidacy 3 years ago, a fight over immigration, fight over the border. But these real-world circumstances
but if they fix it,
so much more complicated.
But if they actually did work together and stop pointing the fingers at each other on the House and Senate and presented a bill, I mean, if they actually did sit down and do their jobs instead of coming to Washington just to fight, I mean, you know, there would be a bill a president could sign.
But Greta, you can't possibly say that when right now part of the problem is there is no bill that this president will sign. That's part of the problem.
You know, I don't buy that. I don't buy that. If you present,
first of all, he can't decide what his opinion is or what he's for and what he's against.
If the House Democrats and Republicans, Senate Republicans, Senate Democrats did their jobs, what they all claim that would do if they came to Washington, if we put them in office and actually did fix these problems and put a bill together, a strong bill, a president would sign it, whether it's a President Trump or a President Obama.
We got the president that we have.
I think that the president has taken some tremendous steps which would upset a lot of people I work with on the conservative side. They're worried about this concept of citizenship for people who came here illegally. I understand, but I'm saying the president took some steps to say, look, I will go towards you if you go towards me. The problem with immigration, it always becomes this huge, comprehensive bill. I would advocate more for fixing things that we know are problems. We know this idea of separating kids from their parents is a problem. Nobody likes it. It doesn't make anybody comfortable. I hate the policy. The president said on October 7th he wanted to change it. Why don't we change it? Why don't we do things that make sense to both sides? Why don't we get, as Greta's saying, why don't we get moving and get these things done?
Matt, the president could pick up the phone and stop it today, number one. Yes, he could.
No, he can't, because you're the legislative chamber.
Well, the one piece of legislation that could move through the floor is the one that Speaker Ryan just abandoned. Democrats and Republicans did get together with the USA Act to begin to address these issues. And again, it's those vulnerable Republicans that are turning their back on this process, and it is politics that are breaking this apart.
Look, I hate I hate hearing. I've been in Washington too long. I hear all the Democrats say how awful the Republicans are. It's the Republicans that do it. All the Republicans say how awful the Democrats are. The Democrats do it. But you know, the American people, I think, are probably pretty sick of this.
They want us to fix things, and we should allow bills to be voted on the floor.
They want you to do your job. They want you to.
I want to turn to North Korea, and first by playing this amazing video that was played at the president's press conference that he played himself for Kim Jong-un. Here's a little excerpt of it.
2 men, 2 leaders, 1 destiny. A story about a special moment in time when a man is presented with one chance that may never be repeated. What will he choose? To show vision and leadership? Or not?
All right, first of all, when that started playing at the press conference, I was there. It was first played in Korean. I thought that maybe somebody had hacked into the system here. That was pretty amazing. But,
I like the basketball.
But yeah, the basketball is a nice touch. But shouldn't the president get some credit for trying this? I mean, we are a step further away. We may not have solved the nuclear issue. We're far from that. But we were on the brink of what seemed like possible war just a few months ago.
Well, we were on the brink of what possibly seemed like war because we had a president who was going around actually saber rattling, so that didn't help. So it's one thing to sort of
President Obama did tell him this was the biggest challenge that he was going to face on the national security front.
I give this president credit for at least taking this step. The problem is we don't know yet how significant this step will be because, as we know, a lot of it will depend on everything we now need to find out in terms of what are going to be the ways that we can verify how much nuclear. But in all seriousness, it may be an important step. We just don't know because then there's now the 20 other things that have to happen.
That's life.
And we'll know what.
That's life. You have to take a step, and you have to determine that the policy we were on was going to result in a destabilized globe because they are a nuclear power. We were going to do the same thing on Iran.
They're still a nuclear power today, by the way.
Let me finish. That's right. And so the policy resulted in a very bad outcome. And the president came in and said, we got to try something different. If you have to make some kind of promo video, if you have to put the American flag out there, it's very distasteful for all of us. These are steps to try that presidents we all served were a part of and to try to get us on a better path to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. It's clearly the right thing. Yeah, we're worried about the next step. You have to take the first step to determine the second step.
This is interesting, though, Rick, because Republicans would have eviscerated Barack Obama if he had gone and met with Kim Jong-un, wouldn't they have?
No question. And to me, it's another statement about how Trumpism is Republicanism, Republicanism is Donald Trump right now, because he has remade what it means to be a Republican. And I agree with you. I think this is the kind of step that if the Democrat had done, the Republicans would have gone nuts on. The fact that they have rallied behind him on this, I think, look, a lot of folks look at this and say it's better than the alternative. I think we see that in our poll out this morning. At least it's a possibility of a better outcome. And I think you see his
popular,
right, relatively.
Greta, you interviewed the president right after the meeting.
And I've been to North Korea 3 times. And look, you know, there's so many times when we deal with people we don't want to deal with. We had Nixon in 1972 with Chu En-lai, and he met Mao Zedong. We had President Obama shaking hands with an American flag and a Cuban flag in Cuba with Raul Castro. And now we've got our president with Kim Jong-un in Singapore with both the flags next to it. Look, you know, we deal with these horrible people because we're hoping that we can get solutions. We even had a situation where we lifted sanctions in Myanmar, hoping that they would improve with the democracy. Instead, they do ethnic cleansing with the Rohingya. So we deal with awful people because Mother Teresa and the Pope don't have nuclear weapons. It's these awful people who have these things. So we deal with it, and it's a terrible situation that we have to, and they're horrible human rights. But I agree with Matt, and I agree with Karen. It was a start. We don't know where this is going to lead, and North Korea has been deceitful before and probably deceitful this time, but this is an important start.
All right, unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you very much for being